My name is Clara, I'm 28, and this is the story of how my boyfriend and my own sister conspired to ruin me, but they had no idea I was one step ahead. Before I tell you about the moment I watched him sobbing on my doorbell camera at 3 in the morning, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. The notification lit up my phone with a cold, blue light. The timestamp read 3:17 a.m. I didn't have to guess who it was. I rolled over in my warm, comfortable bed, my new bed, in my new apartment, and tapped the screen. There he was. Leo. Soaked by the relentless Austin rain, his face puffy and pathetic, illuminated by the porch light. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't banging on the door. He was just standing there. Crying. His shoulders were shaking, and he kept wiping his eyes with the back of his wet sleeve. My finger hovered over the speaker icon, but I didn't press it. I didn't need to hear a thing. Watching him fall apart in complete silence was so much more satisfying. I watched the live feed for another 30 seconds, a small, cold smile playing on my lips, before I swiped the notification away and rolled back over. I was asleep again in minutes. But it didn't start this way. 3 years ago. I thought I had found my forever. When I met Leo, it felt like the world had finally clicked into place. He was charming, ambitious, with a smile that could disarm an army. He saw me in a way no one else had. He remembered that I liked my coffee with exactly 1.5 sugars, that my favorite movies were old black and white noirs, that I dreamed of visiting the coast of Italy. He talked about our future like it was a fact, a blueprint already drawn up. He'd talk about the small inheritance he was expecting from his grandmother, not as a boast, but as a seed for our future, a down payment on a house, a fund for our kids' college. He made me feel safe. He made me feel cherished. For 2 years, he was my everything. The 3rd year was when the cracks began to show. It started so small, I almost didn't notice it. A flicker of annoyance when I got a text from a male coworker. A sharp question about why I was 15 minutes late coming home from the grocery store. I brushed it off. He's just protective, I told myself. He just loves me that much. But the flickers became flames. He started needing to know my phone password, just in case of an emergency, he said. He'd make jokes in front of our friends if I talked to another man for more than a minute, little digs about me being a flirt that made my stomach clench. When I'd get upset, he'd masterfully turn it around. I was overreacting. I was too sensitive. He'd look at me with those big, earnest eyes and say, "Clara, I trust you completely. I just don't trust other guys." And like a fool, I believed him. I started dressing down, avoiding eye contact with men, making my world smaller and smaller just to make him feel secure. The real beginning of the end came on a Tuesday night in October. I'd just gotten a small promotion at the architectural firm where I worked. I was ecstatic. It wasn't a huge jump in salary, but it was recognition. It was a step forward. To celebrate, Leo and I went for drinks with a few of my colleagues. I felt happy, truly happy, for the first time in months. I was laughing, talking about a new project I was excited about. My colleague, Mark, a kind, happily married man in his 50s, came over to congratulate me. We chatted for maybe 5 minutes about the new role. It was completely innocent. Professional. The car ride home was silent. Not a comfortable silence, but a heavy, suffocating one. I could feel the anger radiating off of Leo in waves. He gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. He just stared straight ahead into the darkness, his jaw tight. When we got back to our apartment, I finally broke. "Leo, what is it? What's wrong?" He threw his keys on the counter with a loud clatter. He wouldn't look at me. He just walked to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, and leaned against the counter. "Talk to me," I pleaded. "Did I do something?" He finally turned, and the look on his face made my blood run cold. The warmth was gone. The love was gone. All that was left was a cold, ugly suspicion. "Don't play dumb with me, Clara," he said, his voice dangerously low. "I saw you. The way you were laughing, touching his arm. The way you were looking at him." He took a step closer, his eyes narrowing. "So just tell me, how long has it been going on with you and Mark?" The air left my lungs, and all I could do was stare at him, the accusation hanging in the air between us like a vial of poison, ready to shatter. That one question hung in the air and changed everything. It was the moment the man I loved vanished, replaced by a stranger wearing his face. I could have screamed, I could have thrown something, I could have cried. But all I could do was stare, my mind racing to defend myself against an attack that had come from nowhere. "Mark? Leo, he's my colleague. He's nearly 60 years old and has grandkids. He was congratulating me on my promotion." My voice was steady, but my hands were shaking. "Oh, a promotion," he sneered, and the word sounded like an insult. "Is that what you call it? Getting cozy with the boss so you can climb the ladder?" It felt like a physical blow. "How can you say that to me?" And just like that, the monster vanished. His face softened, his shoulders slumped, and he was my Leo again. He came forward and wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into a hug that felt more like a cage. "I'm sorry," he whispered into my hair. "I'm so sorry, baby. I don't know what's wrong with me. When I see other men looking at you, the way you light up a room, I just lose my mind. It's because I love you so much. Forgive me?" And I did. I forgave him. I spent the next hour comforting him, reassuring him that he was the only one for me, that I would be more careful, that I wouldn't give anyone the wrong idea. I went to bed that night feeling like I had done something wrong. That was his special talent. He could set our house on fire and somehow convince me I was the one holding the match. That night was the beginning of the real darkness. The psychological warfare. My life became a series of quiet interrogations. A text from my best friend, Megan, would prompt, "What did she want?" A trip to the gym became, "Who was there? Anyone you know?" He'd go through my phone while I was in the shower, and if I questioned him, I was the one who was being secretive. I was the one with something to hide. I started to feel like a prisoner in my own life, constantly being watched, constantly on trial for crimes I hadn't committed. My friends noticed the change. I was quieter, more withdrawn. When Megan invited me out for a girls' night, I'd make an excuse because I didn't want to face the 20 questions from Leo when I got home. He'd told them, I found out later, that I was going through a rough patch, that I was feeling anxious and depressed. He painted himself as the devoted, worried boyfriend, patiently caring for his unstable girlfriend. He wasn't just controlling me, he was curating my reputation, isolating me until he was the only person I had left. The biggest move in his campaign came about 6 months later. He sat me down on the couch, his eyes shining with excitement. "Clara," he said, taking my hands. "I think it's time we took the next step. A real step. For our future." He showed me a listing on his laptop. It was a gorgeous 2-bedroom apartment in a new high-rise downtown. It had floor-to-ceiling windows, a gourmet kitchen, and a rent that was nearly double what we were currently paying. My heart sank. "Leo, it's beautiful, but we can't afford this. My salary can't cover half of that." "Don't worry about that," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "My commissions at work have been incredible. We can handle it. Think of it, Clara. This is an investment in us. A real home. We can start a real life here. Maybe even start saving up a proper college fund for our future kids." He smiled that smile, the one that had always made my knees weak. "I want to build a life with you. Don't you want that?" He made me feel like if I said no, I was saying no to us. That my financial prudence was a lack of faith in our relationship. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. I sat in a cold leasing office and watched my hand shake as I co-signed the 12-month lease. I felt a knot of dread in my stomach, but I pushed it down. This is what you do when you love someone, I told myself. You trust them. You build a life together. I had no idea I wasn't signing a lease. I was signing my own death warrant. The new apartment felt less like a home and more like a beautiful, expensive prison. Leo's paranoia only got worse in the bigger space. He worked late more often, came home smelling of beer and a faint, unfamiliar perfume that he claimed was from a client meeting at a bar. Meanwhile, I was the one walking on eggshells, meticulously documenting my time, making sure my stories were straight, all to avoid a fight. I was exhausted. I felt like a ghost haunting my own life, my self-esteem so eroded I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. My breaking point came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. My best friend Megan called me, her voice tight and strange. "Can you meet me? Now?" We met at a small coffee shop, and she didn't waste any time on small talk. She slid her phone across the table. "I am so sorry, Clara," she said softly. On the screen was a dating profile. The picture was of Leo, taken just a few weeks ago at a bar I recognized. He was smiling, holding a drink, looking carefree and single. And the bio felt like a punch to the gut. 3 little words, single and looking for fun. My vision blurred. The cheerful pop music playing in the coffee shop sounded distorted and far away. "How?" I whispered, my throat closing up. "My coworker Sarah," Megan explained, her voice full of fury on my behalf. "She's new to town, on the apps. She matched with him yesterday. She recognized him from a picture I have of the 4 of us on my desk. She sent it to me this morning asking if you two had broken up. The evidence was undeniable. It was recent. It was active. Every late night, every suspicious question, every time he'd made me feel crazy, it all snapped into focus. It wasn't paranoia. It was projection. He had been accusing me of everything he was guilty of himself. I felt a tear slide down my cheek, hot and shameful. He had made me feel worthless, unlovable, and all the while, he was the one looking for something else. He was the one who was the liar, the cheater. I thought about our beautiful, expensive apartment, the lease with my name on it, the future he had sold me. He wasn't building a life with me. He was using me. I was a convenience. A placeholder. Someone to pay half the rent while he looked for my replacement. I looked at Megan, at the pity and anger in her eyes. I could have broken down. I could have run home and screamed at him, thrown his clothes out the window, ended it all in a blaze of fury and tears. The old Clara would have. But as I sat there, staring at the smiling face of the man who had systematically dismantled my spirit, something inside me shifted. The sadness began to recede, and in its place, something cold and hard began to form. It was a cold, quiet rage. He didn't deserve my tears. He didn't deserve a dramatic confrontation. That would give him power. That would make him the center of the story. No. He deserved to be ruined. He deserved to have his perfect, arrogant world collapse around him, just as he had tried to collapse mine. He thought I was weak, paranoid, and pathetic. He was about to find out how wrong he was. I wasn't just going to leave. I wasn't just going to cry. I was going to make him regret he was ever born. I was going to take everything from him, just like he had tried to take everything from me. If you're still listening, please help me out by liking this video and commenting the number 1 below. It lets me know you've given me a like, and it tells me you're right here with me on this journey. Your support is a huge encouragement for me to keep going. Please, comment with the number 1, and then let me tell you what happened next. Thank you. Knowing you're with me means more than you know. That night, I went home and played the part. I made Leo his favorite dinner. I asked about his day. I smiled when he kissed me, the taste of betrayal bitter in my mouth. While he was in the shower, I went into our home office and closed the door. My hands were steady as I dialed the number. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, big sis. What's up?" My younger sister, Sophia. She was my opposite in almost every way. Where I was quiet and cautious, she was bold and fearless. She had moved to California for college 8 years ago and had built a successful career in marketing. She was beautiful, intelligent, and fiercely loyal. We were incredibly close, but because of the distance, we hadn't seen each other in person in nearly 3 years. And, most importantly, Leo had never met her. He'd only ever seen a few old, grainy photos of her on my social media from years ago. He wouldn't know her if she walked right up and slapped him in the face. Which, I was starting to think, was a fantastic idea. "Soph, I need your help," I said, my voice low. "I need you to come to Austin." I told her everything. Every lie, every accusation, the dating profile, the new apartment. I talked for 20 minutes straight, the words pouring out of me in a torrent of pain and fury. On the other end of the line, Sophia was completely silent. When I finished, the only sound was her quiet, controlled breathing. "I'll book a flight for tomorrow morning," she said finally, her voice dangerously calm. "Text me his full name and a picture of him." There was a pause. "Clara, we're not just going to expose him. We're going to dismantle him. Piece by piece." Sophia arrived the next day while Leo was at work. Seeing her was like a jolt of electricity. She hugged me tight, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. We spent the rest of the day with Megan, huddled around my kitchen table like generals planning a war. We scoured Leo's social media. He was predictable. Vain. He posted workout selfies from the same LA Fitness downtown every Tuesday and Thursday evening, like clockwork. He even time-stamped them. "This is our way in," Sophia said, a predatory glint in her eye. "His ego is his greatest weakness." The plan was simple, but brutal. Sophia would accidentally run into him at the gym. She would be everything he thought he wanted, gorgeous, confident, and completely captivated by him. She would get him to fall for her, hard. And while he was whining and dining my sister, thinking he was the smartest man on the planet, he would actually be funding his own destruction. "But what if he recognizes you?" I asked, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Sophia just smiled. "Don't worry. He won't." The next morning, she went out and came back a different woman. She had traded her dark brown hair for a sun-kissed blonde, and she was wearing blue contact lenses that made her eyes a startling, electric blue. "What do you think?" she asked, striking a pose. She looked like a stranger. A beautiful, dangerous stranger. That Tuesday, we put the plan into motion. Sophia got a guest pass to the gym. We knew Leo's routine. He always started with the bench press. Sophia, wearing a pair of leggings so bright they were practically radioactive, set herself up on a treadmill with a direct line of sight. Megan and I sat in a car in the parking lot, our phones in our hands, waiting. At 6:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophia. "Target acquired. He hasn't stopped staring since I walked in." Another text came through 10 minutes later. "He's coming over. Showtime." We waited for what felt like an eternity. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was it. Everything hinged on this moment. Finally, after 30 agonizing minutes, my phone buzzed again. It was a picture. A selfie of Sophia, smiling sweetly. And in the background, out of focus but unmistakable, was Leo, looking at her with a stupid, goofy grin on his face. The text below the picture read, "He asked for my number. He says he wants to share workout tips." Hook, line, and sinker. The text started that very night. Sophia, Megan, and I sat on my couch, a bottle of wine between us, and watched the whole pathetic seduction unfold in real time. Leo didn't even wait an hour. His first message was a classic, unoriginal line about how he couldn't stop thinking about her smile. Sophia played her part to perfection. She was coy, a little hard to get, just enough to make him work for it. By the end of the night, he had asked her on a date for that Friday. He told me he had a mandatory work dinner with a client from out of town. I kissed him goodbye that evening, my stomach churning, and told him to have fun. The first date was at a ridiculously expensive steakhouse downtown, the kind of place I had begged him to take me for our anniversary, but he'd always claimed was out of our budget. Sophia sent us a running commentary via text from the bathroom. He ordered the most expensive bottle of wine. He bragged about his salary, his investments, and his future. And, of course, he told her he was single. He said he was just getting out of a really toxic, long-term relationship with a girl who was incredibly needy and unstable. Me. He was describing me. Reading those words felt like swallowing glass. That first date was the beginning of the floodgates opening. For the next 2 months, Leo lived a double life, and we were the puppet masters. He became obsessed with Sophia. He started canceling our plans at the last minute to see her, coming home late with that smug, self-satisfied look on his face. And Sophia, my brilliant, beautiful sister, played him like a violin. She was strategic. She casually mentioned a designer handbag she'd seen in a store window, and 2 days later, he'd surprised her with it. She'd bring it straight to my apartment, and we'd put it in what we called the evidence locker. She talked about a pair of earrings she loved, and suddenly Leo was dropping $500 to impress her. She would always accidentally leave the gifts at his place, our place, claiming she didn't want to lose them, but really so he couldn't ask for them back. Then, she'd bring them straight to me. I had a growing collection of expensive jewelry and designer bags, all purchased with money he claimed he was saving for our future. But the worst part, the part that fueled my rage and kept me going on the nights I wanted to give up, were the conversations. Sophia started recording their phone calls. It was legal in our state with one-party consent. She'd send the audio files to me and Megan. I'd sit in my car during my lunch break, listening to the man I lived with, the man I still cooked dinner for and washed laundry for, describe me to my own sister. "She's just a dead weight," he said in one recording, his voice dripping with contempt. "The only reason I haven't ended it yet is because it's convenient. She pays half the bills, does all the cooking, all the cleaning. She's basically a Roomba that also pays rent. A Roomba that pays rent." He had reduced my love, my loyalty, my entire being, to a household appliance. When I heard that, I smashed a glass against my kitchen wall, the sound echoing in the empty apartment. Megan had to come over and help me clean it up before he got home. Another time, Sophia asked him what he even found attractive about me in the first place. He laughed. A cold, cruel sound. Honestly? I don't even remember. It's gotten to the point where I almost gag when she tries to kiss me. I swear, she's the most hideous thing sometimes. The most hideous thing. He said that about me. While I was at home, trying to figure out how to be a better partner, trying to understand why he was so distant, he was out there calling me hideous. Every insult, every lie, was another nail in his coffin. He had no idea that his words weren't just vanishing into the air. They were being collected, catalogued, and saved for the day of reckoning. And that day was getting closer and closer. 2 months into our operation, the financial drain started to show. Leo, who had always been so proud of his savings and his disciplined approach to money, started getting stressed. He began complaining to me about unexpected expenses at work and how we might need to tighten our belts for a while. The audacity was breathtaking. He was asking me to cut back on my morning coffee so he could buy my sister a $500 pair of shoes. Then, things escalated. Sophia, following our script, began talking about her dream vacation. A luxury resort in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Overwater bungalows, private pools, the works. She sent him pictures, talking about how romantic it would be. He took the bait, of course. He became obsessed with the idea of being the big shot who could whisk her away on a trip like that. I watched from the shadows as he began to liquidate his life to fund this fantasy. His prized vintage guitar collection, the one he never let me even touch, sold on eBay. The expensive watch his grandfather had left him? Pawned. His crypto investments that he was so proud of, the ones he was always lecturing me about? Cashed out at a loss. One night, while he was in the shower, I did something I'd never done before. I checked his phone. I found what I was looking for in his email. A loan application. He had taken out a personal loan for $15,000. He was going into serious debt for a woman he'd known for less than 3 months, while his girlfriend of 3 years was at home eating pasta to save money. That was when he played his most desperate card. He came home one night looking nervous and told me we needed to talk. He sat me down on the couch, the same couch where we used to cuddle and watch movies, and took my hands. His were clammy. He told me he knew he'd been distant, that he'd been working through some things, but that it had all made him realize something important. It had made him realize that I was the one. Then, this delusional, cheating, lying fraud got down on one knee. He pulled out a ring box. Inside was the saddest little diamond I had ever seen. It was tiny, cloudy. A panic purchase. "Clara," he said, his voice thick with fake emotion, "will you marry me?" I was speechless. It was the most pathetic, transparently manipulative move I could have ever imagined. He was trying to lock me down, to secure his Roomba that pays rent, before he went on a lavish vacation with my sister. I wanted to laugh in his face. I wanted to scream. Instead, I did the only thing I could do. I burst into tears. They weren't entirely fake. They were tears of pure, unadulterated rage. "I need time to think," I sobbed. "You've been so distant. I don't know if we can fix this." He looked crushed, but also relieved that I hadn't said no outright. "Of course," he said, patting my hand. "Take all the time you need." A week later, he came to me with his final, most audacious request. He sat me down and explained that he'd made some bad financial decisions and was in serious trouble. He was talking about maxed-out credit cards and loans, the very debts he'd incurred trying to impress my sister. And he had a solution. He wanted me to take out a loan in my name to consolidate his debt. He said it would be a sign of our commitment, the first step in our new life together, proof that we were a team. He wanted me to ruin my own financial future to pay for his infidelity. He wanted me to pay for the rope he would use to hang himself. And with a sweet, innocent smile, I told him I'd think about it. The 10 days leading up to the Cabo trip were the most stressful and exhilarating of my life. I was living on a knife's edge, playing the role of the wounded, hesitant fiancé while secretly plotting his complete and utter ruin. I told Leo the first had an appointment at the bank to discuss the loan application. I dressed in my most professional outfit, let him kiss me for luck, and walked out the door. My actual destination was a coffee shop where I met Megan and Sophia to finalize the last details of our plan. When I got home that evening, I told him the bank needed some time to review my application, but that things looked positive. The relief on his face was so palpable it made me sick. He spent the next few days being the perfect boyfriend, bringing me coffee in bed, rubbing my feet, all while secretly texting Sophia about their upcoming romantic getaway. While he was busy being Prince Charming, I was busy being a ghost. Every day when he left for work, I packed. I started small: books, sentimental photos, important documents like my passport and birth certificate. I rented a small storage unit a few miles away and made daily trips, loading my car with the pieces of my life. I was systematically erasing myself from the home he thought we shared. By the time the trip was 3 days away, all that was left of my presence were the clothes in the closet and the toiletries in the bathroom. This was when Sophia played her trump card. She called Leo, sobbing hysterically. Her grandmother, she cried, had just been hospitalized after a bad fall. She might have to fly home. She couldn't possibly go to Cabo. Leo panicked. I could hear his muffled, frantic voice through his office door. He tried to find a solution. Could they postpone? No, Sophia said, everything was non-refundable. Could he come with her to see her grandmother? No, it was family only during a crisis. He was completely trapped. He had spent thousands of dollars, gone into crippling debt, for a non-refundable trip he was now going to have to take alone. After letting him stew in his own misery for a full 24 hours, Sophia called back with good news. Her grandmother was stable. The doctor said it was just a scare. The trip was back on. The wave of relief in Leo's voice was tidal. He was so grateful that he actually sent flowers to Sophia's grandmother, flowers that were delivered to my new, secret apartment, where Sophia was staying. The night before the trip, I told Leo the first needed some space to think about his proposal. I told him I was going to stay with Megan for a few days. His relief was so obvious it was almost comical. It solved his biggest logistical problem, how to get his suitcase to the airport without me asking questions. Of course, he said, hugging me tightly. Take all the time you need. I hope you have an answer for me when I get back from my business trip on Sunday. The lie just rolled off his tongue. He was a professional. As I stood in his arms for the last time, I felt nothing. No sadness, no regret. Just a cold, clean sense of finality. I packed my last suitcase while he was in the shower. I walked through the apartment one last time, a place that held so many memories, so many of which were now tainted. I didn't feel a thing. I put my key on the kitchen counter, walked out the door, and didn't look back. The final countdown had begun. The next morning, the three of us drove to the Austin Bergstrom International Airport. We weren't flying anywhere. We were there for the show. We got coffees and found a table at a cafe with a perfect view of the check-in counters for his airline. At 8:25 a.m., we saw him. He was wearing new, ridiculously tropical-looking clothes, a big, excited grin on his face. He kept checking his phone, looking around eagerly for Sophia. He looked happier than I had seen him in years. We waited. At exactly 8:45 a.m., just as he was approaching the front of the check-in line, Sophia pulled out her phone. She looked at me and winked. Ready? I just nodded, my heart hammering in my chest. She pressed send. Across the terminal, we watched Leo pull out his phone. His excited smile faltered, replaced by a look of confusion. He stared at the screen. We knew what he was seeing. First, a short video of the three of us, me, Sophia, and Megan, sitting in my new apartment, raising champagne glasses. Thanks for funding my new life, Leo. Sophia says cheerfully in the clip. Then, the selfie. All three of us, smiling ear to ear, with our middle fingers raised high. And finally, the text beneath it. Surprise. Hope you enjoy your $17,000 vacation for one. Your ex-girlfriend knows everything. And by the way, my grandmother is fine. The color drained from Leo's face. His mouth fell open. He looked around wildly, his eyes wide with horror and disbelief, as if he expected to see us standing there. He immediately tried to call Sophia. Her phone, resting on our table, remained silent. He had already been blocked. He tried to call me. Same result. He stumbled out of the line, slumping onto a nearby bench. He just sat there, staring at his phone, a statue of pure devastation. We watched for 20 minutes as he frantically typed messages that would never be delivered, before he finally got up and walked like a zombie toward the exit, dragging his expensive new suitcase behind him. The aftermath was exactly as we had planned. He showed up at our old apartment to find the locks changed and a letter from me on the kitchen table. The letter detailed everything I knew, complete with printed copies of his most vile messages about me. It also explained that the lease was now his problem, and that if he ever tried to contact me, my sister, or my friends again, a folder containing every piece of evidence would be sent to his parents, his boss, and posted publicly. He was fired from his job a week later for trying to secure a company loan to pay off his personal debts. He defaulted on the expensive apartment lease, destroying his credit score. Last I heard, he had to file for bankruptcy and move back in with his parents in their tiny hometown. He lost everything. His money, his job, his reputation, his home. Which brings us back to last night. 3:17 a.m. The rain. The pathetic, sobbing figure on my doorbell camera. For months, he had called me weak, needy, and hideous. He had tried to break me down, to isolate me, to ruin me financially and emotionally. He called me his Roomba. But as I watched him cry on my phone screen, I didn't feel anger or pity. I felt quiet. I felt peaceful. I sent the video to Megan and Sophia with a single laughing emoji, got a couple of cheering ones back, and then I put my phone down. I rolled over in my warm, comfortable bed, in my safe, quiet apartment, and slept like a baby. That, my friends, is what you call karma. And it is beautiful. Thank you so much for listening to my story all the way to the end. It means the world to me to be able to share it. If you've ever felt overlooked or betrayed, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone in that situation? Let me know in the comments below. And if you'd like to hear more stories, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.